Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and I'm not wearing a new pair of glasses. This is actually an old frame with a current prescription that did not work out very well for me, and I've been using another pair of glasses that have recently broken. They won't replace them without getting a new prescription, even though I don't need a new prescription. I need a new frame that broke to replace that frame, and anyway, I'm not very happy with this right now, nor am I happy with a few things that other people seem to be very happy with. I was just planning on covering today's Apple announcements. I'm very grateful I did not spend the time to stream those announcements live with interactivity. I mean, even though I do love streaming interactively with my patrons, I'm doing this live, in case you were wondering. These are my patrons. ChrisPirillo.com is where you can sign up to see my live streams and ask me questions that you may want to have answers to. It's just that today's Apple announcements were, I guess, whelming. Not overwhelming, not underwhelming, just whelming. And as much as I was intending on just talking about what Apple announced today, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Microsoft announced yesterday and what Apple announced today, because from a distance, a lot of people are seemingly in the same boat that I am. Now, remember, I really don't get excited about new hardware. Doesn't happen all that often. I get excited about new software. I'm a software guy. Always have been, always will be. I have to repeat that every time I talk about new hardware. It's not always about the hardware. New hardware is useless if the same software sucks on it. So just understand that's my reality. Apple announced some new MacBook Pros. They are faster. We were kind of expecting that. The big change in the new MacBook Pros is the Magic Touch Bar. This OLED screen, is that what they call it? Let me put it to you this way. It seems like it has the possibility of being a gimmick. That's what has me concerned. It could be a gimmick bar. I can't judge. I'm not using it. I have absolutely no plans on upgrading anytime soon, just to get this magic toolbar, touch bar, whatever they're going to call it. I wasn't so much put off by it, even though I still feel that it has great gimmick potential, which is not a good thing, by the way. A gimmick is just something that separates this product from other products, apart from it running Mac OS, unlike any other product out there. I like the idea of it. I would be greatly concerned that it suffers from the same frame rate inconsistencies as iOS, as Mac OS, and the like. But the thing that I guess I sat and watched kind of play out, as many people did, what I saw and what was, I guess, more obvious to me, glaring. The thing that detracted my attention, or pulled my attention, I'm not going to say detracted, even though it was a detraction. Apple also announced a new touchpad that is apparently larger than existing touchpads. And I don't mind that as an idea. I don't mind it being lighter. I don't mind it being faster. I don't think anybody would complain about that. But the layout of their new trackpad on the new MacBook Pros has virtually no padding at the top as it juts up against the keyboard, and virtually no padding on the bottom where it kind of juts up against the edge of the MacBook chassis. So there's no padding. But there is padding around the keyboard, right? You've got two speakers flanking each side of the keyboard, and some amount of aluminium at the top of the keyboard. So that's congruent right here. The top part of the square, the top part of the rectangle is congruent. Unfortunately, the padding between the hinge and the keyboard, the aluminum padding, quote unquote padding, I'm talking about visual padding, not necessarily like physical padding, just this visual padding is maybe a centimeter or so-ish, give or take. But there's an incongruent padding at the bottom. So the top padding is this, and the bottom padding is this, and the side padding is congruent to the top padding. So it's like they just kept growing the touchpad, and it doesn't look good. There's no distance between it and the keyboard, which is offset by the distance between the keyboard and the hinge. It's just visually cringeworthy. I don't know what Apple's design people were smoking, but I hope it was legal, whatever they decided to inhale when they thought this was a good idea. Maybe people are clamoring for a big trackpad. That's a possibility too. I'm not going to take away from that, but it looks horrible. Not the touch bar. I think the touch bar looks pretty cool. If it works well, if it's more than just a gimmick, if it doesn't just serve to get in the way, it's an interesting idea in terms of how to introduce touch to the Mac OS experience. I think it's a smarter way to introduce touch to a desktop experience. Smarter than how Microsoft approached Windows. So I'll give Apple that. I like the idea of it. Remains to be seen whether or not it turns out to be a gimmick. I don't know. I can't judge that. The thing that drove me nuts is the design choice they made with incongruent padding of that trackpad. So for anybody who claims, oh, the hardware is this, that, no, if you're not paying attention to those details, you misunderstand exactly what drove people to Apple to begin with. And a large part of that was their design choices. On its own, it could be excused as, well, Apple's just trying to make the touchpad bigger. That's fine. But let's also remember that to charge or recharge the new Apple Magic Mouse 2, or what are they calling it? That, right? I get so lost with this terminology. The charging port is on the bottom, meaning you can't use the mouse. Oh, but it only takes 20 minutes to recharge. Yeah, or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it needs to get to a certain point. That's not the point. The point is that you put the charging port on the bottom of the mouse. A lightning port, which makes sense, right? Lightning, okay? Lightning's on the iPad, the iPhone. But it was that design choice that kind of had people going, okay. Well, I guess I kind of feel the same way about the choice of them kind of putting that trackpad onto the MacBook, which it's been there for quite some time, but in such a fashion that it almost seems like an afterthought. Design was an afterthought. Like, they didn't even think about design. It just doesn't look good. I would take a smaller trackpad with just a visual consistency and padding, and it's beautiful to look at on or off. As it stands, it looks sloppy. It really does, and I'm not the only person to pick this up. I'm not the only person to say this. I tweeted it out immediately. I'm like, am I the only person seeing this? And people are like, no, you're not the only person. With Apple and design, it not just now hardware, but software, it's not even cutting corners. It's just it's death by 1,000 cuts. So, no, I have absolutely no want, need, or desire to get that at all. I don't want it. Maybe they'll fix it if they perceive it as a problem, which they probably don't, because they did it. Look at it. Just look at the imbalance of it. Just look. Look at the imbalance of it. Forget the usability for a second, because we don't know how usability is going to work with the palm resting there and all that. I'm talking about just how it looks. You used to pay a premium for that design. Now you're paying a premium for what? I don't know. RAM? SSDs? You pay a premium for that. Apple's hardware is I'm not gonna do what the other people do and call it boring. It's not boring. I don't think their hardware is boring at all. I think the design of the new MacBook Pro is ghastly. I'm not talking about the toolbar. Everything else on the MacBook looks okay, right? Except for the incongruent visual of what surrounds the trackpad, which I still want to call a touchpad. You touch it, So that is my chief concern. Like, if any tech reviewer out there says, look at this beautiful, beautiful, blah, 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 don't listen to them. Don't trust them. Because if they can't see it, they can't be trusted. It is clearly apparent. This is just not good design. The Emperor has no clothes. So let's go ahead and go a step further. What the hell happened to courage? Do you know? I thought I remembered when, was it a few months ago? Apple came out and said, why did we remove the headphone jack? Courage. Okay, Apple, I'll give you that. It does take courage. Makes sense. You're going Lightning. Fine. On the new MacBook Pro, what do we see? We see a headphone jack. Okay. So Apple just basically pissed all over its courage. Like, I don't believe them now. Really? If you were going to be courageous, why did you... Well, the design, blah, 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 then you should have had them in lockstep. Because coming out and saying, well, we removed the headphone jack here, and that took courage, but the headphone jack is still here. So we still don't have courage there yet. Doesn't make any sense. They went through and they revamped every other port, which they needed to do. Now, mind you, I've been a fan of the MagSafe adapter. I have. But I've also wanted a more consistent experience with USB, so I'm also a fan of USB Type-C. So they upgraded all the USB stuff. I like that. We still got the headphone jack. What? Believe it or not, I may be the only one. I still use the SD card slot every day. Well, I could get a USB adapter for it and everything, but it's just one more thing to attach. So, design-wise, it's a MacBook-ish. That trackpad placement, man. Someone was not thinking clearly. It looks like an Apple knockoff product. I'm not even joking. I can't even get to the part of wanting to enjoy the touch bar. Because I just can't get past that. How could you not see that as a problem? You know, for you who claim that hardware is important, how could you not see that? Apple's doing things we used to make fun of other people for, or other companies for. From software to hardware, man. I don't know. I'm whelmed. They also announced some new app for like a TV guide type of experience. That's not what it's called. Like an Apple TV experience. Haven't had a chance to use it. I'd imagine it's going to be free for Apple TV, iPad, iPhone. Oh, well, apart from that, yeah, the Touch ID integration in the MacBook. Okay, that's neat. It's a neat thing, but the trackpad, it just looks horrible, man. If you can't see it, if you can't see how bad that looks, again, go back to what Apple had been known for. Okay. So I think I'm going to try to stop slagging Apple for just 5 minutes. Now it's time to slag Microsoft. They announced the Surface Studio. That's what I think it's called. Fascinating. It's effectively they announced the iMac. They announced a touchscreen iMac for all intents and purposes. And honestly, I think they kind of did a better job with what that type of PC is. As much as I really like the iMac, I like the idea that pretty much all the internals of the Surface Studio are in the base. I'm like, that's kind of intelligent. I thought that was kind of nice. I like that as an idea. I like that. I like that a lot. So that's one thing that sets the Studio apart, the Surface Studio. Not cheap. You know, thousands upon thousands of dollars for this thing, but it's not for everybody. It's a desktop machine, which, let's face it, is kind of a dying breed outright. What the Surface Studio is for is the creator, the illustrator, someone who designs. Because you take basically the monitor, the screen part, and you can pivot it down And then it creates this nice little angle where you could draw, you could write, you can do creative things with your fingers and your stylus or whatever. Then you could set it back up, and then it's a traditional desktop. Seemingly pretty smart. I really like that idea. I think it would be a very compelling option for creators. Now, this is where I saw a lot of discontent yesterday. A lot of people who are creators, who do work with creative programs like Adobe Photoshop, are now looking at the Surface. Specifically the Surface Studio for creation, longing for something like that from Apple. Now, I would not expect Apple to integrate Touch on the desktop any more than it has with this new Magic Touch Bar thing. And I think that's the right way of doing it, because it's old habits die hard. Mac OS and Windows were not designed with this input device at all, or even this input device. They weren't outright. And so to try to operate the platforms with anything apart from trackpad or touchpad or a mouse, it gets a little wonky, to say the least. That is one of the things that has kind of held me back from really taking Windows seriously as they want to be taken. The Surface Studio does mitigate some of that UX nightmare scenario within Windows. But the thing that I think would keep me from necessarily investing in it is, I'm not a creator in that capacity. I don't draw. Unless you have a use case specifically for a touchscreen environment, I don't know how well it's going to work for you in terms of budget. Design wise, it's fine, but again, you can design the most amazing piece of hardware, but if the software is not there, I don't know. So this is where I have a problem with software, and I've had for quite some time with Windows. It's a mishmash, dude. If I wanted to use Windows 7, I'd use Windows 7. If I wanted to use Windows 10, I'd use Windows 10. The problem is they're all mashed together, right? You've got elements that are still legacy, and then when you start adding in third-party software, it really starts to get fugly. DPI scaling mixed and font smoothing issues across the board, and it's just, the more you try to use it, the worse it looks. That's one of Windows's problems. It's a mix, and that's not a good thing. Sometimes I just want Windows 10 to be Windows 10, right? And to live in that new sheen environment. But then the moment the old kind of pokes its ugly head out, I'm like, oh God. Oh. It's like enjoying a new cookie, right? No, and then you bite into a raisin. Oh. Now, some people don't mind raisins. I am not one of those people. I mind raisins greatly. And so to me, Windows 10 is this chocolate chip cookie fresh out of the oven that has an errant raisin in it, and these old bits and pieces that look like very old bits and pieces. So the new hardware, it works, I'm sure. Still the same looking old with a little looking new software. So that's Windows 10, and then forget the security and privacy issues on top of that. Or add them to it. I don't care. So I was whelmed. That's where I was with Microsoft's announcements yesterday. That's where I am with Apple's announcements today. I don't know a single company out there that's providing an experience that is worthy of my time and attention. Apart from bits and pieces, my favorite PC experience remains to be, and I'm not just saying this because I can say it, I'm going to say it anyway, the HP Star Wars notebook computer, the special edition notebook computer. Darth Vader's on it, man. Built right in there. Yeah. Why? Because where else are you going to get a Star Wars computer? It's awesome. Love it. One of my favorite computers of all time, because Star Wars, right? People, are wondering, why I'm not more excited. Because honestly, this is just a computer, dude. I'll move on to the next one and not bat an eyelash. I won't care. I'm not going to cry. This means nothing to me. Technology means nothing to me. Nothing. What matters to me is what I can do with technology. What experiences technology provide. Or provides. What people can do with technology. That's what matters, right? Because this is going to get upgraded. This is junk walking, junk sitting, junk processing. You know, I have zero emotional attachment to gadgets. It's hardware. Who cares? It's software. It'll get upgraded. But when it just doesn't work in lockstep, or when you've been accustomed to really good experiences and then suddenly you have no choice but an array of really lackluster experiences, it's hard to adjust. And that's what it feels like. It feels like now I've got no choice but to choose between an array of very lackluster experiences. From everything I see out there, it's nothing but a series of trade-offs. Now, you might argue, well, there's always going to be a trade-off with Apple. There's always going to be a trade-off with Microsoft. There's always going to be a trade-off with Google. There's always going to be a trade-off. This is true. There's always going to be a trade-off. What's perfect for you is not perfect for everybody else. You have to understand that. The problem is that for the longest time, Apple was the clear winner, and that's a muddied proposition at best anymore. You know, Justine tweeted something earlier today that she wasn't happy about the USB-C. She loved MagSafe, but she was gonna get the new MacBook anyway. To me, that's Stockholm syndrome, man. The writing's on the wall. You know, I don't think that's how technology works. We should demand more from our technology companies. I believe that tech companies can deliver better experiences. Do they? Question mark. Will they? Question mark. I'm not talking about something that anybody can do, because that's what it seems like. You know, apart from one-offs, I don't know where the industry's head's at anymore. I really don't. I don't, and I don't have much hope, because I'm not an engineer, right? In terms of consumer electronics and consumer experiences, it's just, instead of things getting better, they're getting better in some respects, but worse in other respects across the board. And I think we should demand more from these companies. Absolutely. And and it's another reason why I refuse to, see one as outstandingly better than another, because it's just not the case. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's like I have to wait for the next year to come along before I see something that might possibly be better than what we already had. And it's just, it happens so few and far between. There are too many trade-offs now. Too many trade-offs. Apple has never been more ripe to be disrupted. Microsoft was disrupted. I think they need to go further with what they've done. They need to clean up the cruft. No one else is. Google's got a long ways to go, too. They got a long way to go. You ever tried scrolling in Google Chrome? They give Apple a run for their money with frame drops and frame rate inconsistencies. I can't even say inconsistencies. I'm inconsistent in terms of how I say inconsistencies. No, I am definitely not Steve Jobs. Don't want to be. I don't have any amount of want, need, or desire to be that at all. Yeah, you're not the only person to say I should work for Apple. Funny thing is, I almost got hired at Microsoft years ago, over a decade ago. This was before Vista. And after that, I'm sure. I don't think any company can handle my feedback, because sometimes I'm too brutal. But I usually turn out to be correct. Just saying. There are so many times I've been correct in my analysis and calling the ball. Too many times, and it's. I don't want to be right. I don't want to be right. So yeah, I wasn't very. I'm glad I did not waste my time. I just wish I could believe again in something. It's been so long. It's been so long. But it's just technology. It's not my identity. My identity does not revolve around this, just to the point where I don't care what you choose to use. I really don't. There are a lot of great things out there that'll work well for you. And that's the great thing, is there are options. There are choices in the marketplace. Always love seeing something new. But looking for something that's going to fit my needs is getting to be more and more challenging, and that's the most frustrating thing. It's kind of sad. So, nope, not my identity. I don't care. I don't. These new announcements really don't excite me. Not anymore. Nothing compared to the excitement that I get when I walk into a store and see new Star Wars figures. Wave 2, out now. Chirrut. I got a couple of him. One to open, one to keep in the box. Cassian Andor. Wave 2. So happy about this. A new Darth Vader. And I say new. It's a new sculpt. Still 5 POA. Very happy about that. I had already unboxed this Jin. I thought I had. I'm pretty sure I did. The one that came with the AT-ACT. So I think that's the same one. I found a Director Krennic. And that's Darth Vader. I got dupes. Hang on. I thought I had one more. Maybe not. Oh, yep. This is the one more here. Oh, two more. Sorry. The Princess Leia from Rebels. And a Rey. The new Rey. With the different face sculpt with her goggles up. So, just to reiterate, I'm saying that this one figure for $8 that I got free, I used a gift card, go.tagjag.com/free apps and go.tagjag.com/free points. That's how I earned gift cards. This $8 figure was far more exciting to see and to have than anything I've seen announced this week. Did you hear me? This $8 piece of plastic, far more exciting than any new tech announcement this week. Today's free highlight was brought to you by all of my active patrons from ChrisPirillo.com. If you want access to the full TLDR episodes, both audio, video, past, present, and future, which can be up to an hour long or longer, with even more tech insight from me, plus other bonus content without ads, and support me at the same time, you can sign up to become one of my supernomies too. This is just a brief taste of what I'm producing for you. Again, get more through ChrisPirillo.com.